right, with that, the thought of the day, give it up for Adrian. Adrian Wilson!
We love you.
Like this, but that's okay. I'll say it. So today, for the thought of the day, in honor of Black History Month and the start of Black History Month, I'm going to do a libation ceremony. And for those who do not know what a libation ceremony is, it's a ritual or an offering, so a prayer that we give to our ancestors. And during this libation ceremony, I'm going to refer to the African diaspora. And what that means is, you know, the people who were spread across the nation and across our world, you know, from the slave trade, right? So when I talk about African diaspora, it's not just Black people, but it's Afro-Latinos, it's Afro-Caribbean, it's everyone Black that is included in that diaspora. And lastly, this is a call and response. And so whenever I say Ashe, I want you to respond and say Ashe, okay? Ashe. All right, can we practice for me? Ashe. Ashe. All right, okay. And so every time I also do a pour libation, I have Keisha and Warren here to conduct the libation ceremony. All right, here we go. So we pour our first libation to our first ancestors in the heavens, the Almighty, the one above who manifests all things God and all things good in the universe. By any and all names, to our first ancestor we pour libation. Ashe. Ashe. We pour libation to our ancestors of the first people on the planet. We recognize the mothers, the fathers of all mankind and humankind, the first flesh of the human family. To these ancestors we pour libation. Ashe. Ashe. We pour libation to our ancestors who gave birth to the first African civilization in Ethiopia. Those who knew that we needed a form of governance, arithmetic, and language. We nurtured the idea and they traveled through the Nile to Kemet. In Kemet, they built gigantic monuments that is evidence of this great civilization. They carved out instructions on the walls in the temples and tombs so that we never forget their triumph. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! We pour libation to our ancestors who took the knowledge and spread it throughout the continent. They were the first people of the great Exodus who had the courage to leave Africa and migrate all over the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! We pour libation to our ancestors who continue to evolve, and at each point of evolution, they continue to share their knowledge to those who asked. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! Our libation. We pour libation to those ancestors who found themselves as the object of forced exodus. They were kidnapped, shackled, cargoed, and shipped out of Africa and enslaved in the diasporas around the world. To these ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! We pour libation to our ancestors who were left at home, the very old and the very young. They were left to reinvent themselves and depleted of their human resources. They too became objects of a global colonization that ravaged Africa, our home continent. To these ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! We pour libation to those who did not make it through the Middle Passage on their journey. Although their bodies lie in the bottom of the ocean, we pray that their spirits rest in peace. To these ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! We pour libation to those ancestors who, despite punishment, they remembered who they were. No matter where they were dropped off in the diaspora, they will retain all bits and pieces of their history. They remained African to their core, through song, through dance, through spoken rhythm, through drums. They remembered our history. To these ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! We pour libation to the ancestors who survived slavery and spread their roots across the nation. We bless those who completed the Great Migration and settled in the North, East, and West. We recognize those who have contributed to the social, economic, and cultural growth of this nation and others. To these ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! We pour libation to our future of our children, those who are young and those who have not been born yet, that we must teach this history. You can only teach if you know the history. As we celebrate those who learn, we also celebrate those who pass on. We learn and we pass and we learn and we pass on and on into eternity. To the future of the generation, we pour libation. Ashe! Ashe! We pour libation to those who stand here today, the teachers and the learners, and each and every spirit within us. We honor those who respect the history and through this libation ceremony. This is a piece of our history, and together we will continue to celebrate our African history, our Black history, our Afro-Caribbean history, and our Afro-Latino history. To those who stand here today, we pour libation. Ashe! 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 Thank you.